Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a really interesting blueprint for happiness from political commentator Charlie Kirk. Now, it challenges a lot of modern ideas about things like self-love and success, and we're going to break down exactly what it proposes.
So the source material kicks off with one of life's absolute biggest questions, right? What's the real secret to a happy and fulfilling life? And it suggests right away that the answers we hear all the time might just be the wrong ones. And this slide really lays out the central conflict perfectly. On one side, you've got what society often tells us: focus on self-love, follow your feelings, you can have it all. But the source proposes something totally different: service to others, letting your actions, not your feelings, lead the way, and understanding that sacrifice is not just important, it's essential.
Here's our game plan for this explainer. We're going to start with the problem as it's defined, then we'll break down the three core principles: service, the internal struggle, and wisdom. And finally, we'll see how it all comes together as a practical blueprint for life.
Okay, let's start with the diagnosis. The source identifies what it calls, and this is quite a phrase, philosophical carcinogens in modern society. Things it claims are contributing to widespread unhappiness, especially among young people.
The argument here is that we're seeing a generation in crisis, and it traces all these issues back to a single root cause: a constant inward focus. This obsession with the self, it claims, isn't leading to fulfillment. It's leading directly to anxiety and depression.
And wow, the source does not mince words here. It presents this incredibly strong critique of cultural movements that push self-esteem above all else, arguing that they've actually had a toxic, damaging effect on people and society as a whole.
This connects to another major point: pushing back against that modern idea that you can have everything you want all at the same time. Instead, the source advocates for being realistic. You have to create a clear hierarchy of what you value and accept that going after one thing often means you have to sacrifice another.
So, if self-obsession is the problem, what's the solution? Well, the very first principle is to completely shift your focus outward. It's all about finding your purpose through serving other people.
Now, this is a really fascinating part. This slide is all about flipping the script on cause and effect. Instead of constantly asking, "How do I feel?" and letting that guide what you do, the proposed rule is to focus on, "What am I doing?" The belief is that if you do good things, the good feelings will eventually follow. And this just puts it bluntly, doesn't it? Service isn't just a nice thing to do, it's presented as a fundamental need for a healthy, happy life. The argument is that a society that isn't dedicated to service is basically destined for depression. All right, let's move on to the second principle, where the focus shifts again. So after looking outward through service, the battle turns inward. But we're not talking about self-esteem here. We're talking about self-control.
This really reframes the whole idea of life's conflicts. The source is arguing that it's not you against the world. No, the greatest battle you will ever face is the one inside your own head, against your own impulses, your own laziness, and your own weaknesses. And this line right here, this just perfectly illustrates the core philosophy. Developing personal discipline, the ability to actually control yourself, is presented as being way more valuable for a good life than just passively feeling good about yourself.
So how do you do it? Well, this slide lays out a four-step process, and it's all rooted in radical personal accountability. It starts with training yourself to look at your own fault first. Then you actively build discipline. You commit to working harder every single day, and you make improving your own character your #1 mission.
Okay, the third and final principle takes us into the realm of the mind. It makes a really sharp distinction between two different kinds of learning: just acquiring temporary knowledge versus pursuing timeless wisdom.
So first up is practical knowledge. This is your everyday stuff: facts, figures, current events. It's useful for sure, you need it to get by, but it's temporary. Its value is constantly changing.
Wisdom, on the other hand, is defined as eternal knowledge. It's about grappling with those huge, unchanging questions of human existence. The source argues that this pursuit is way more important for a fulfilling life, and it's something anyone can access, no matter their formal education. Now, this is a pretty powerful point. The source suggests that wisdom isn't usually something you find when you're comfortable and everything's going great. Instead, it's forged in the fire of suffering and hardship. It's why older people are often seen as wise. They've simply endured more. So let's bring this all home. How do these three big principles, service over self, you versus you, and wisdom over knowledge, how do they actually apply to your life?
Let's look at the concrete advice. When it comes to chasing that wisdom, the source sets a very specific and pretty challenging goal. Read or listen to 100 books a year. This is basically framed as a serious commitment to prioritize active learning over just passive entertainment.
For your career, the advice centers on a few key things. Be a perpetual student, always learning. Find that sweet spot where what you're good at meets what you love to do. And actively seek out and, maybe even record the wisdom of older generations.
When it comes to relationships, the guidance is very clear and, well, pretty traditional. Dating is framed as a serious process with the goal of marriage, not just a hobby. It stresses the massive importance of shared core values and being direct. And for men specifically, self-control is highlighted as the most attractive and desirable trait.
And all of this, the service, the self-control, the pursuit of wisdom, it all requires one foundational element: courage. Citing Aristotle, the source argues that courage is the master virtue. Because, think about it, without the courage to act on your principles, all the other virtues are pretty much meaningless. And finally, the source wraps up with a vision of what long-term success for these ideas might actually look like. It leaves us with this very provocative, forward-looking headline, framing the adoption of these principles on a massive scale as a potential catalyst for a really profound societal change.